this video, I'm going to be building my cleanest $1,500 gaming PC build yet, with no cables, or at least that's the theory. I've got hands on for the first time with this Project Zero hardware, where all of the connections on the motherboard have been moved to the rear, and our cables plug in through the back of the case, where you can't see them. Could this be one of the coolest PC innovations ever, or is it all a bit overhyped? I guess there's only really one way to find out. I should probably start things off by explaining what on earth Project Zero actually is. Now, Project Zero isn't the universal name for this new cable technology. Some brands call it back to front, some call it back to the future. There's loads of different branding names for it, but the idea is that all the major motherboard vendors, MSI, Asus, and GeekaWhat included, are bringing out these motherboards that aim to make cable management a lot easier. This is MSI's take, and I've got to be kind of careful picking this up because all the connections are on the back, so it's not necessarily an easy thing to actually handle. What this means on the motherboard is that the whole thing looks really quite clean, with only our PCI slots, CPU sockets, and RAM DIMMs remaining. There are one or two odd connections here for things like temperature sensors, which we need to have in these locations, but otherwise it's basically empty. On the rear of the board, that's where things get interesting, and you can see why some brands call this back to front. MSI call it Project Zero. Now, we've got everything from our fan headers to our motherboard power cable, front panel USB 3, SATA, and then of course all of the connections you'd have down the bottom, from USB-C to our PWM fan headers, JFP1. There really are a lot of connections on here which are now going to be hidden. This obviously makes cable management a lot easier and gives a much cleaner look to your build, but it's worth noting that as of yet there's no unified standard. And that means that although you don't have to buy an MSI case for MSI Project Zero, though it's something I've opted for in this build, you aren't necessarily able to buy a zero cables compatible case and it be guaranteed to work with every motherboard vendor out there. There are also different approaches that have been taken. MSI, you still have to plug the GPU in like normal, which to some people might kind of defeat the idea of zero cables. Asus have added an extra little power connector on the motherboard itself, and we may see MSI iterate and add this themselves in the future. Now, I don't really know how you're supposed to handle this motherboard, because I definitely can't put it flat on the table, as that's going to squish all of my connectors. Yeah, I didn't really think about that. I'm going to leave it upside down for now, as that seems the safest route, and maybe for the first time ever on the channel, install the motherboard into the case before doing anything else. So I suppose we should probably look at the case. This is really weird. In particular, this is MSI's MAG Pano M100RPZ. Now, this is actually kind of quite a cool case design, generally speaking, but it supports that Project Zero cable layout. Kind of weirdly, this is a micro ATX case, despite having 320mm fans at the front or side. And although it's not massive, it is fairly large for an M-ATX form factor tower. Now, in an ideal world, I probably would have gone for a full-size ATX board in this build, but we need to go for the motherboard that actually supports the case, and of course, form factors are much more picky when you've got those connectors at the back. This is probably the most careful I've ever been installing a motherboard, and because all those cables are on the rear, you've just got to make sure you get this spot on. Any misalignment could easily lead to bent pins, especially on the front panel cables at the back. So I'm actually really quite nervous about this, if I'm being honest. And with that in, it should just be a simple case of actually getting the whole thing screwed down exactly like normal. I feel much more confident now the motherboard is in the case, because for a first time builder in particular, having those cables on the rear, that is a very easy way to make a very expensive mistake. I thought this was going to be easier for beginners, but I'm not kind of that sure anymore. In terms of the CPU, I've picked up the AMD Ryzen 7 7700X. That's because it's a great 8-core, multi-thread, 16-thread CPU that's going to provide us really nice performance. Now, you can still overclock on the B650 chipset too, which is nice. Not that we'll be doing a great deal, maybe 100 or 200 megahertz just to squeeze a bit more performance where we can. For the Ryzen processor, I've also picked up 32 gigs of DDR5 6000 megahertz memory. Now, this comes in from Apacer and is part of their Panther range. I'll link it below for latest pricing and availability. You get RGB, you get a really nice heat spreader, and it's got a black and silver design that's going to match perfectly for the build today. It won't be for every system, but for this Project Zero motherboard, I think you would struggle to find a better fit. Now, get that all lined up, bit of pressure. No, is that the wrong way around? Let's try that again. Get it all lined up, a little bit of pressure on our memory. There we go, lovely stuff. 32 gigs is absolutely perfect for a build like this. 16 is simply not enough. And kits like this have got so affordable nowadays, it just makes sense to buy memory like this rather than something significantly cheaper. SSD is next up. It does feel really weird to be doing all this in the case, and I'm sure if you've skipped the first part of this video, you're probably very confused. Now, the integrated M.2 sort of heat shield on this, or heat spreader, probably the right word, needs to come off first. There's 4 screws on that to be removed, and once that's been taken off, that will reveal our 2 Gen 4 NVMe slots on the board. Now, we can actually go ahead and slide this drive in without too many problems. Looks like it's got the standoff screw pre-installed actually, so I'm going to take the drive out and unscrew the little standoff screw first. Yes, that'll do. And then go ahead and reinstall our M.2 drive, little something like so. Fasten it down with the included standoff screw and add the heat spreader on top to keep everything nice and secure. Now, time to see if all the cables are poking through in the right places and if they've survived. Now, it looks like the integrated cable management could definitely be a bit better, but other than that, yes, all of our cables are in the right place. Our CPU power is coming through here, motherboard up the top, and then all of our fans too. The cutouts are slightly larger than what they need to be for this board, so presumably we're going to see boards with extra cables and extra connections in these spare places. And I like that the integrated fan hub's at the bottom next to where all of our front panel cables are. So that should make cable management a lot easier in the long run. Now, I don't really know what to do next. This whole order's thrown me off a little bit. I think we'll do the CPU cooler and we'll do all the cables and wiring at the end, which we don't need to do now because it's going to be easy to access forever, which is kind of cool. Now then, let's take a look at the cooler installation options. I've picked up this MSI MAG CORELIQUID E360. This is a really nice 360mm cooler that really doesn't break the bank, and I think it should look pretty good in the system today. I'm thinking we can put it at the side, but I'd rather put it at the top as that currently has no fans, and adding it in here would give us a nice natural exhaust and make the case just look a bit more full without having a detrimental effect on temperatures. Fans are going to go at the bottom to pull air through the radiator, to add the fans onto the rad first, and then screw the whole sort of rad assembly into the case afterwards. You want to make sure as well you've got the AMD mounting hardware installed to the water block. That looks like this and will allow us to install on top of the 7700X. And there we have it, looking pretty good. The tubes have been a little bit difficult, but I'm hoping with a bit of time they'll settle into place and look quite nice. Now, keeping with the white theme of the build, I've picked up, where is it? Aha! The MSI 4070 Super Scaling X Slim White. Now, a lot of people have actually said to me that these slim cards are a really good idea because it enables really wide compatibility, especially for more compact mini ITX systems. Obviously, for this build, size isn't going to be a huge issue, but it is still nice to have something that isn't excessively large. I do love the aesthetic as well. It's white primarily with some silver accents, which should match the RAM and the motherboard, and I suppose even the top of the cooler. The backplate is definitely more silver than white, which I think MSI maybe could improve on. I think an even more white card might be a nicer approach in future, but for this build today, it actually fits perfectly. Now then, in terms of where we're going to install it, not many options, just the top PCIe slot. So push the clip back, then hover the GPU over. You can see loads of clearance, and we need to remove, yep, thought so, the first and second PCI lanes. Once you take these lanes out, you'll want to keep hold of the screws, as we'll of course need these to tighten the graphics card in. You guys know the drill by now. And I've got a suspicious feeling that this build is going to look absolutely incredible. So a bit of pressure, click that in. Got to address the elephant in the room. Of course, our power connector is here, which is not really very hidden at all in any sense of the word. Almost having it on the end, or preferably at the bottom or the back, would be better. Maybe this will come. I'm sure MSI are watching closely to see exactly what all the other brands are doing with their zero cable designs, but it looks nice. And of course, we've got a grommet here, so we're not going to have too much cable on show, but I can't help but feel like it sort of hampers slightly the idea of having a zero cables build. All that then really remains is to pop the power cables and front panel cables in. And this is not normally the bit of the build I'm really excited about, but today I find myself oddly enthused by this idea. So ignore the mess of cables. This is a bit of a shame, really. I'm going to attack the front panel cables first. So our USB 3.0 is the first of those to be done, and that's a right-angled cable, so it should fit in without too many problems. Now, obviously, with this being an MSI board and MSI cables, you'd like to hope this should all work pretty perfectly. HD audio is going to be next. And that's going to go down here, normally to the bottom right. Yes, so all the cables are still in the same places. This isn't a right-angled cable, but it is flexible, so we shouldn't have any problems at all with clearance. Then we've got, that looks like our front panel connections, potentially. And that's going to tuck down here at the bottom right. So JFP1, it's got the pin blocked out. That's really, really easy. Nice little quality of life feature. And MSI, I do quite like to see that. Lovely stuff. Then, this is the one I'm confused about, because this is our front panel USB 3.1 Gen 2 cable. and it's not right angled. So it pops into this connector up here, a little something like this way, or maybe the other way. Maybe this way. Let's try that again. But I'm confused because how on earth is that supposed to close? Am I going mad? Now, obviously, I've still got cables coming out the top, so this is not exactly scientific, but I'm really intrigued. I mean, technically speaking, that does work, but look at how bent this cable is going to have to be. We're going to be talking like that kind of angle, which I think, and I would worry, would easily trash the cable and the panel. Sorry for the interruption, it's Future James here. Just need to point out that MSI have since confirmed that they're changing the USB-C cable to a right angle one. So if you buy this case in the future, you should get that right angle connector. Obviously, I can only review what's in front of me, which is the non-right angle version, but glad they've listened to a bit of feedback on that one. On a more positive note, all of our fan cables are really, really easy to run. There are a lot, so bear with me a second here. Admittedly, that's still looking pretty messy, but I'm going to pop the power supply in next. I had actually stupidly picked up some sleeve power supply cable extensions, which I don't need because the cables are going to be invisible. For the PSU, I've lost it. Again, I keep losing everything today. Here it is. I found it. The MSI A850G out. It's a PCI Gen 5 PSU, so that should help minimize the Gen 5 cable management, which is a bonus. And it has all the cables we need with 850 watts of power. I mean, it can't really go too far wrong, really, when it comes to an 850 watt 80 plus gold unit. I'll link this and everything else mentioned today for latest pricing and availability down in the description below. I have to say, I think this is going to throw the whole thing off a little bit. Let's install it. Okay, I suppose it's not too bad, but definitely think there could be a solution to be come up with there. Now, other than that, I think we could be pretty much good to go. I'm going to turn the power switch on, see if anything happens. Okay, some things are happening. Looks like I'm missing one or two SATA cables. I have a feeling this should definitely fix some of our RGB woes, so let's see if that helps. Yes. Oh, it's fixed everything. Oh, great. Marvelous. Cool. And I must admit, that does look clean. There are one or two things that bother me. The cable by the fans on the right is a bit too visible. That could have easily been hidden better, MSI. And of course, we've got our cooler cables, which are really difficult to hide, and surely there may be a better solution out there. If potentially we could run the cooler cables within this tube and actually have the controller at the back of the radiator, that would be a lot easier to run. And similarly, this GPU cable here is taking the edge off a bit. It's not perfect, but it's certainly something a little bit different. What do you guys think? Let me know down below. The proof's in the pudding though, as far as how good this thing performs. So let's take a look at performance after a quick GeekaWhat montage. Not a bad looking build, right? I've got to say, I do like this zero cables approach, but that GPU cable is just not working for me. So definitely like to see MSI do something different here with the graphics card. As far as performance goes, we have tested this build on a wide range of titles. So without any further ado, let's look at Alan Wake 2 first of all. Here at 1440p high settings, the 4070 Super achieved 74 FPS on average. 90 and 99 percentile results were strong too, and we tested using both MSI Afterburner's Riva Tuner and NVIDIA FrameView. Move through into Call of Duty Warzone 3, 1440p high, DLSS enabled and set to the quality preset, and the 4070 Super achieved 162 FPS on average. 90 and 99 percentiles were strong too, 151 and 139, showing a pretty consistent frame rate. Modern Warfare 3 at 1440p high, DLSS again set to quality, also performed well, just a shave under 200 FPS with 195 frames per second on average. Starfield, a much harder game to run, also performed really well on the 4070 Super. 1440p high here achieved 92 FPS on average. Again, the 90 and 99 percentiles were really consistent, and actually surprisingly so compared to some of our testing previously in Starfield. It's a game that is getting better optimized by the day, making performance on a build like this better than a couple of months ago. Hogwarts Legacy's next, 1440p high, DLSS 3 enabled this time with ray tracing set to high, and really impressively, frame generation does its bit, allowing us to achieve a staggering 180 FPS on average. That's with ray tracing on high in a game where that visual aid really does help. Fortnite 1080p competitive settings, why not? Everything tuned down to low, render distance set to far. The build achieved not quite 300 FPS, but 290 on average. Not a bad result. While Apex Legends rounds off our testing at 1440p high once again, an average over 200 FPS. Really good to see. 235 frames per second to be precise. What do you guys think of this build? Both the performance that I've just covered off and also also that zero cables aesthetic design, where MSI are leading the way when it comes to hiding all those cables, but obviously still have a few tweaks to make, whether that be with the front panel USB-C, cable, or of course a GPU power solution. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to get subscribed. Thanks for watching, and as always, we'll see you in the next one.